The man is here, Brooks Austin, who covers the Bulldogs for SI. Good morning, good sir. I don't know when this is going to publish, but nevertheless, good day. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. It's one of the things that I love about both live and like pre-recorded content. It's on demand. However, whenever you found it, thank you for being here. One of those things.
No doubt whatsoever. Look, I'm glad that you're here. I appreciate you being here with us. Obviously, the game last week was absolutely insane. One of the best games that I think I've ever watched, regardless of who you're a fan of. Brooks, I'm just going to leave it open-ended here. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you were at the game. Just how awesome was that game, just as a fan in general?
So first and foremost, I want to talk about Tuscaloosa. I've never been. That is a school and that is a campus that is built to mesmerize their stadium. Okay, no, every road in that city points right to that stadium. Everything in this, every moment, every area of the city, you can look right to the stadium and go, my God, that is a Coliseum. That is a modern day Coliseum. It's one of the very few SEC stadiums that's built on flat ground, meaning every bit of the stadium is above ground. You go to Athens and like half of it's below the bowl. Like you go to other stadiums and most of it's below the ground. This is a modern day Coliseum. They have done everything with regards to stadium environment that they possibly can to make that thing, without a better term for it, lit. Okay, so that place is really, really tough to play in, as everyone already knows. But I was just taken away by the way that the campus is built and just the love of football that is obviously on display the moment you walk into town. Like I said, the town is built to admire what is built on the stadium. And aesthetically, the stadium is gorgeous. Every corner of walkthrough into that stadium is just phenomenal. So I was blown away by Tuscaloosa as a whole and as an environment, everything. So, but yeah, the game was nuts too. The game was absolutely crazy.
You've covered this team for a long time. I'll just come out and ask, was that the worst half of football in the first half under Kirby Smart ever?
Yeah. From an execution standpoint, and I like defensively, I don't think they were prepared properly. Now they made adjustments. That was obvious. We did a film breakdown on the first half. I just got done taking the notes on the second half. They bumped alignment, they bumped formation, they bumped personnel defensively. They did a lot of stuff, but I don't think they made adjustments quick enough in the football game defensively. Offensively, I don't know if it was, I'm going to say, I don't think it was a matter of coaching. They were prepared. They had the right looks. They had the right calls. They did not execute in the first 12 minutes of this football game as an offense. In the second half, they continued to execute, or I should say started to execute, and you saw them move the football relatively explosively, taking advantage of what people think is a gettable Alabama secondary, but I think that's a little bit fugazi. I think by design, it's the only thing that is gettable. They stack the box. They play a lot of man-to-man coverage. They play one high safety. So you're going to get one-on-ones on the edge against Alabama for the remainder of time with Womack as the defensive coordinator. I think Georgia settled in, but definitely got executed on the offensive side of the football for the first 12 minutes of that game.
So you talked about breaking the film down, and then you asked Kirby Smart a question in his press conference yesterday, and I kind of want to combine the two. And basically, you were saying, hey, you had some right calls on, but the execution wasn't there. Do you think that the Georgia staff in the first half kind of got overwhelmed by being out-schemed, or was it just purely execution?
Defensively, I think they got out-schemed for the first like 4 drives. And like I said, I alluded to that. They made adjustments though. And I think if you were to look at the full 4 quarters, the staff that made adjustments was Georgia. Alabama stuck to their guns for 4 quarters. And I think that's why you saw some climb back in that football game, apart from some stalling offensively from Alabama. But again, in that second half, I think most of that stalling was by design or by adjustment from Georgia defensively. But in terms of getting out-schemed or outmatched to start the football game, I think that was on the defensive side of the football. Offensively, man, Bobo designed winners to start the football game. Arian Smith has a drop. Dominic Lovett gets called back for a PI, offensive PI, which definitely was offensive PI that he didn't need to do. The second possession of the football game, Arian Smith, Carson Beck calls a perfect check out of a 0 blitz from Alabama, gets a screen pass called. If Arian Smith runs the tunnel like he's supposed to, there's nothing but green grass in front of him. Instead, it ends up in an interception. The third possession of the football game, man, on 2nd and 7, Bobo's got a perfect screen and go called up. Alabama shows simulated pressure, so Carson Beck checks out of it. The simulated pressure kept Alabama from giving up an explosive. So you have to give the defensive coordinator some credit, but you also have to look at it and say, man, there's opportunities left on the film. There's opportunities right there offensively. I think that game probably should have been a one-score game going 28-21 if you executed properly, but you did not, right? The other team's executing better than you. Tip your cap, move forward. That's that.
Right. You know, it's interesting you say that because I'm 100% with you defensively, and I'm with you 100% on what happened offensively. And so much so, Brooks, that I'll just ask you this. You're down 28-0, and then you started running the football. Now, I'm not saying that you were great at doing it, that you didn't have to get tough yards, but I look at the drive where you finally got your first 7. You got 4 carries by Etienne that he's got 25 yards on. And it felt like 2 of those, by the way, coming on crucial third downs. So I ask you, do you think that in the first half that Georgia somewhat got out of the game plan as the narrative of what people have been saying? That's not Georgia football lining up and running the football.
In my opinion, man, like with the way Alabama was stacking the box, with the way that they were adding the safety to the box, the way that they were playing cover one robber the entire football game, it wasn't a game that going into it, no matter the score, that you were going to run the football 35 times into loaded boxes. It just, it doesn't make sense schematically to do so. Add on top of that, the fact that you're down 28-0 to start this football game, and whatever game plan we had coming in, probably scrapped. You know what I mean? Probably scrapped. We have to change and adjust with the game on the fly. Right. I look at it on tape, and I can justify what they did offensively from a game plan and play calling standpoint. The explosives and the yardage to be had was through the air in this football game, and it was that going into this game, to be honest with you. I knew that Alabama was going to do this, and by the way, Georgia hasn't seen 2 high safeties all year. They've seen pre-snap 1 high safety all year because teams know what you know. They're not going to let Georgia run the ball 35 times and run it down our throat today. We're going to dedicate bodies to the box. We're going to make Carson Beck beat us in this game. Kentucky did the same thing, man.
They did the same thing to Ole Miss this past week too. Jeez and peace. Second half though, here's the thing that I've said, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't cover the team on a daily basis, but I've heard a lot of people talk about the situations around Georgia, like the off the field stuff, and I'm like, is chemistry broken? You know, when you have a first half like that, is chemistry broken? Brother, did you watch it? I know you did. Did you watch that second half? Because no team with bad chemistry comes back and then takes a lead. You talked about breaking down the second half. Dude, I thought was as flawless in areas as I've seen Georgia offensively doing some things when you watch that second half and they come back and take a lead. What did you see?
See, people call me a Georgia homer. I'm about to piss on that one. The whole second half offensive performance is skewed. I can't really – like, dude, they're running the ball on 2nd and 12 because they know they have a 4th down. Like, that's not I can't take that and say, other than, you know, the only thing I can take away from it is that Alabama didn't move away from cover 1 and didn't move away from playing a version of Tampa 2 against duos and a version of Tampa 2 against 3x1. So they were very predictable, and Georgia got to a point where they were starting to design up some winners, and not only were they executing, right, they were hitting them, but they were calling them at the right time. So I have some sense of that, but no, I'm like the first, you mentioned the first possession where they scored a touchdown in the second half, buddy. They converted 2 4th and 1s. They converted 2 4th and 4. They converted situations where in a normal situation, they're punting the ball. So like, I think like, yeah, we could say, hey, they provided some confidence. I seen Georgia fans do the, hey, we need that Carson Beck. We need the Carson Beck that plays with no governor. But he turned the ball over twice in the second half. The reason he the reason he plays with a governor normally is to avoid turnovers. He doesn't like them. He doesn't want to do it. He protects the ball. So yeah, he played without a governor. Also had a fumble and an interception on 1st and 10 in a 2-minute drill. So like, it's skewed. The whole second half offensive performance, very skewed. Kirby Smart said the same exact thing right after the football game. I can't take much from that and be like, oh yeah, except from they beat some of the schematics. They executed and won some of the one-on-ones, but they were beating the schematics in the first half. I just told you that. They just dropped some balls, right? They didn't execute. They did in the second half.
Is Jalen Milroe the best player in the country?
My God. Oh my God. I said this on our show. That's the closest thing I've seen in a decade to Cam Newton. He's not 6'6". He's not 250, which I don't know what Cam was listed at, but he played like he was 290. But from a standpoint of he's completely unpredictable. We as a defense are holding our breath for 4 quarters, and we are at his mercy. The best thing we can do is get the ball out of his hands, make him check it down, and hope that we can tackle their weapons. Mm-hmm. Like that right there is the epitome of undefensible. And yeah, he is the best player in college football apart from Travis Hunter. I mean, kind of got to put that guy aside, but
right.
This dude is the most undefensible, unanswerable problem that exists in college football right now. Yes.
I thought going into the game that there was a potential that Kirby would look at what Michigan did a year ago. I get different coaching staff, different scheme, things like that. They ambushed Jalen Milroe last year, and I know he's a different player, but I was kind of surprised that they kind of set back in most instances. Were you surprised that they didn't come after him some?
They did. They tried. Okay. They zeroed him. They blitzed him. They pressured him. They sim pressured him. The difference is this year, man, like I thought Tommy Rees got a lot of undue slack last year. I thought he got a lot of shit that he didn't really deserve. I thought he did a good job morphing that football team midseason. They came into the year as a pro-style, drive the ball down the field, play-action football team. Towards the end of it, they started morphing into Jalen Milroe's skill sets. I thought he did a good job. However, I think we can all agree DeBoer's better. Like, so DeBoer gives him answers. DeBoer gives him more answers. They were hitting the tight end on Saturday. Why? Because they were hooking that guy right over the ball, right over where the pressures were coming when pressures were available. So I see a progression from an NFL standpoint in Jalen Milroe's mind, in his processing. When he sees blitz, he gets to his hots quicker than he ever has before. There's still a lot to clean up mechanically. He has what I would call an NFL processor right now. He does not have NFL mechanics and accuracy. And you could see this a couple of times on Saturdays where, okay, like the pick he threw in the red zone, that was him getting to his hot against what he thought was a simulated pressure. He just threw it at the dude's shin. And as soon as the ball hit the dude's shin, he got hit by a linebacker, ball popped up, interception. But he got there. Last year, he would have pumped the ball down, double check, and ran. You talk about Michigan, though. What did Michigan do so well? 2 NFL defensive tackles that are going to be top 2-round picks, and they got after the dude and put guys in his lap immediately. Like,
right.
I love that analysis, and honestly, that analysis will work against any quarterback. Get pressure with 4, push the pocket, make him stay in there. Stuff. Okay. You got to have the talent to do so. This guy's progressed, 100% has progressed. And DeBoer has, made things a little bit easier on him. But he was the best player on Saturday on the field by far, not even a question. And I think I saw 2 misses where he either didn't see the field properly or just missed a throw. That was it for 4 quarters.
That's insane, flawless. Man. If I would have told you that in the beginning of the season, I mean, I don't know if we would have looked at Kalen DeBoer a lot differently than maybe some did. Let's move a little bit forward before I get you out of here, Brooks. I'm not a big stats guy necessarily. I don't necessarily look at him outside of just trying to win my point, okay, against my co-host on our national show. But let me ask you this. I look at Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not 1,000% sure that they can't move the football on people. Look, they're 23rd in the country in total offense. They're 23rd in the country in passing yards. They're 23rd or 25th, I think, in the country in rush yards. Kirby alluded to this yesterday in his press conference. I'll ask you maybe if you see some of the same. Outside of the turnovers, is this team got some weapons? Can they do some things? I'm not saying against Georgia because, look, you can't be one of the top 25 offenses going through into week 6 and not have some production. What do you see when you look at Auburn?
Oh, no, they certainly have weapons. They certainly move the football. They certainly have good offensive production and yardage, and the turnovers have been a problem.
No doubt.
But the turnovers are a Hugh Freeze problem. Now, they have been expounded and they have been extrapolated by Peyton Thorne. I cannot deny that. 15 turnovers through 5 football games is not very good. But did you know, Blake, that in 11 years as a head football coach, Hugh Freeze's football teams have won the turnover margin at the end of the year just once? Did you
No,
know?
I never knew that.
Did you know that 8 of 11 years as a head football coach, Hugh Freeze's offense have turned the ball over more than 20 times? Like this is what this guy does. He sits in front of microphones and he blames his quarterbacks and he blames his offense and he blames and he blames and he blames. But the fact of the matter is, for 11 years, the data size is large. For 11 years, this guy's offense has turned the ball over. Now, they're turning it over at a much higher rate than ever before, but it ain't that much higher. I mean, he's got years of 29 turnovers, 27 turnovers, 25 turnovers, 23, 27. I mean, this is what this guy's offenses do. This is what he does to his quarterbacks. So he can sit there and Peyton Thorne his way and blame it on turnovers, but it's a byproduct of his system. The data says so.
So when you see that, this is an interesting point. I never knew this. Why do you think that is? What are they missing? What's happening there on why that's happening in his career?
My opinion.
Yes.
And look, this isn't 100% film or stat verified, but in my opinion, this dude is an RPO heavy football coach, and RPOs can be a little bit troublesome with regards to repetitiveness. If I do them over and over again, guys get really, really leaky. They get really, really grabby. They start fainting looks. Oh, I act like I'm going to blitz, or I act like I'm going to play the run. And then as soon as you pull the ball out, I'm out, because I've been seeing RPOs over and over again. So I think that might be a byproduct of this. And just think about it. If I'm constantly making really quick decisions, I can constantly make really bad decisions really quickly. So I think that might be a byproduct of this. It's one thing to run 7 or 8 RPOs in a football game. It's another to run 15, 16, 17 of them. That might be what's happening here. Or it just might be he recruits turnover-worthy quarterbacks and can't figure out how to develop them and protect the football. Either way, a very long, large data size and sample of this guy's quarterbacks doing exactly what he's complaining about his current quarterback doing. By the way, he went all offseason and have the opportunity to change it and chose not to.
Yeah, this is
on coach that's got 8-4.
This is on him. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, it came down to Cam Ward. If you talk to the right people, of Auburn's money versus Miami's money. I mean, let's just be honest on what most people were talking about, or him going to the NFL. Brooks Alston is our guest. When you look at this Auburn game, how do you see this one playing out?
Oh, it's at home. It's at home for Georgia, which means a lot of points and a big margin of victory. Historical. That's what that means. I expect to probably see something very similar. I do respect the hell out of Auburn's defense, though.
Their front seven is better than what people are saying they are. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, you're not, and that's because people don't understand the state of Alabama football. Like they don't get that. Like, yeah, Alabama gets all the great defensive linemen that they want out of that state, but there's a lot of great defensive linemen in that state. You can go outside, throw a rock at a 300-pounder that can stop the run. So, yeah, they're always going to have big physical bodies on the line of scrimmage. They're always going to have fast and physical linebackers. That's the state of the program that will always be a staple there.
So you talk about them being at home and it being historically big. Is there something that Auburn does that scares you if you're Georgia going into this game, or what do you like? What is the most successful thing that Georgia can do outside? Like, you go out of the game like, hey, I'm glad they worked on this. This improved. If there's anything that you want to see go after this week,
execute early. Execute early. This offense against Kentucky had execution problems. Again, I don't think it was play calling. I think it was a lot to do with, tight end got his ass whipped this play. Wide receiver didn't run the correct depth of route on this play. Left tackle got his ass beat on this play. So, I think it was a variety of errors of execution to start that football game. And against Kentucky for the remainder of the 4 quarters, they started to execute a little bit better towards the middle and the end of that football game against Alabama. The score will tell you that. The results will tell you that. They've got to get off to faster starts in the SEC. There is no doubt about that.
The producers asked me this. I'll ask you, status of Tate Ratledge.
That was tightrope surgery a week and a half ago on Tate. So that's going to be 6 weeks.
About another, yeah.
Yeah, I think the timeline originally on that was, let's get him back against Florida after the second bye week.
Have you ever seen somebody with a better mohawk?
He's got a mullet, and
mullet, excuse me.
No, probably not. Honestly, best PR decision dude's ever made. Wearing 69, having a mullet, had people thinking Tate Ratledge was a preseason All-American. Tate Ratledge is an NFL football player. Tate Ratledge is not a preseason All-American, but he has marketability, and he's an offensive lineman that people know of. That's a tremendous job. Offensive lineman, listen to me now. Do the same. You live in a world where you make money off of your likeness. Tate Ratledge has commercials because he has a mullet and he wears 69. So, yeah, tremendous job.
Oh, Trevor Etienne, do you want to see him get some more touches, or what have you thought about his performance?
I want to see Georgia force teams to play too high. I want to see Georgia force teams to not make Trevor Etienne make the safety miss at plus 2 yards. That's what I want to see. When we can see that, we can start talking about Trevor Etienne. Trevor Etienne is an NFL football player, by the way. He's a great back. He makes guys miss all the time. He takes care of the plus 1 defender every single time. The NFL does not need 200-yard sample size in one football game to see that. They can turn the tape on. Like, prime example, 4th and 1, LT Overton makes Jurasic look like a Pac-2 player, throws him on his face, has a TFL wrapped up -5. Whoop, whoop. Trevor Etienne puts him on his face, picks up another 6 yards on 4th and 1. I can see that on tape. I don't need to see the box score to see. I know he's an NFL football player. His production will come when teams force Georgia or give Georgia decent run counts in the box. They have not seen that yet to date.
Last question for you. Is there anything in the SEC that has surprised you this year so far?
Ooh, Arkansas. Arkansas has been a pleasant surprise. If Taylor Green could stop turning the ball over, they might give teams consistent problems offensively. However, I don't know if you can coach that out of him. I think that's kind of who he is. I think you kind of have to live with it. So that's unfortunate. But I think old Sammy, the pit boss, has probably saved his job. I think a lot of going into this season, a lot of people are looking at him as a hot seat. Shane Beamer obviously has been a pleasant surprise, but that could go off the rails at any moment. So I don't think it will, but it could. It very well could. So I would go with those two. Vandy being scrappy, but Vandy is scrappy. You know what I mean? They're a couple of injuries away from being Vandy again, though, but they're scrappy right now. So that's awesome that they're scrappy.
Taylor Green's inability, I think 3 straight weeks of under 50% completion percentage, at least 2 that I know of, man.
He plays what I call hospital ball, Blake. At every play, he or somebody might end up in the hospital. Yeah.
It's true. But you know what, man? Look, their schedule in the next couple of weeks is pretty brutal. They got Tennessee bye and then LSU. We'll see, man. We'll see.
They are so fun to watch, though. My God.
They are. And listen, that's the part that I'm making. You're right. Them and Auburn, if they could not turn the football over, they might upset somebody. So who knows? All right. Brooks Austin, Bulldogs on this side. Thank you for joining us, buddy. I appreciate it.
No doubt about it, brother. We'll